Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take another look at Bitcoin, see what's going on after yesterday's little shenanigans. We're going to go ahead and hopefully understand a little bit about what's going on next. Now, it did not bounce off of the moving averages that we had hoped for. We lost 50 on the RSI on the 1 day. Let's see what that means here. Now, if you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor, just love teaching people how to trade. Hopefully you can learn a thing or two here today. And I do have a trading community. Link in the description below. Check that out when you can. I send out signals for every single trade that I take so you know how to start your trades, and I have a trading academy teaching you how to become a better trader every step of the way. So check that out in due time. So for now, Bitcoin, let's go ahead and state the obvious first and foremost. We had a pretty red day yesterday leading into the weekend. Now I expected to have a red day on Friday. That was kind of my thought process early in the week. Was I expecting almost a 10% correction or 9.5%? I don't think I was. I was expecting a decent bounce off of 41,500, but that didn't matter at all. So unfortunately, that support level is completely lost now, and we're at this point now where we're kind of trending closer to the average volume. And what I mean by that is if we pull this profile up here, we can see that for the last, how many days is this? This is roughly since 17th. So what, 2.5, 3 weeks, somewhere in that range? We've seen a lot of volume since the price has dropped down to this point below the current price action, right around 38,000. Obviously, if we zoom out, we'll see a much different story because, of course, it combines everything together. But we still have a large volume, a large amount of volume just below the current price point, which is very helpful. Okay, basically means we probably have a strong sell wall. A strong buy wall just below the current price action. So if the price were to continue to drop down lower, I think we're going to still be able to see some support as we progress lower. I don't personally, consider or like to consider much, the thought process of Bitcoin coming down in the 20,000 range. I would love it. I would fill my bags, of course. Don't get me wrong. That'd be an awesome opportunity. But the likelihood of that happening, I think, is pretty low, just based on the overall amount of volume in the last year, specifically below the current price action, but also above 30,000. Okay. Again, that's just the consideration there. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at the big picture and work our way down so we can kind of get an idea from everywhere, right? Because we look at the 1 month, we are still making higher highs and higher lows. So if you kind of look at this, that is technically higher than the previous, and this as well. So if this same rate continues, right, our next push should be somewhere in the 70 to 80,000 range. And then our next low, once again, this will be probably next year sometime, should and could be somewhere in the 40,000 range, right? So again, just hypothetically, we continue that trend, that's what would happen. Now, trends do have a tendency of repeating themselves, but they don't have to. It's a stupid situation, I know, and it's terrible, but that's just kind of the way that trading is. The trends are your friend. You want to identify them, but on the same accord, they're self-fulfilling prophecies. Sometimes they don't even come to fruition. So again, that's kind of where we're at there. Let's go ahead and add some moving averages here too, because I want to make sure we're extra thorough and look at some SMA lines. Now, SMA lines, they can be contrary in a lot of ways. A lot of times they don't have a strong bearing, but oftentimes they do too. So it's kind of one of those interesting situations where look at the moving averages. I want you to take this with a grain of salt. This does not mean that it's going to just absolutely work out that way. But if you look in the past here, the 20-day SMA has worked pretty well as a support level for Bitcoin, and we're pretty much testing that right now. So losing the 20-day SMA would be disadvantageous, of course, but once again, we've got a full month's worth of trading. We've got 26 more days left in this month, so we truly are not even close to breaking that at this point. Even if we're to come down to 35,000 and come back up, the whole month is still coming around. And if I'm not mistaken, middle of the month, we're going to have some news, and that should, in fact, shift things potentially in either direction. So we don't truly know what's going to happen between now and then, but I'm speculating we're going to see another leg up between now and the end of the month. Once again, that's me being hopeful, but on the same accord, I'll explain what I mean by that. But that's kind of where we're at here for the monthly. Okay, we're consistently above the 50-day SMA. The RSI rather, 50 on the RSI. That works as a nice support, and of course, still over the 50 SMA. So, heaven forbid we lose the current price action. Some speculate that we'll come down to the 50 SMA at 20,000. I don't subscribe to that thought process, but I would love to think that that's a reality, because shoot, Bitcoin at 20,000, that sounds like a heck of a deal, right? I think I could add to my bags at that rate. I'd love to dollar cost average that. All right, so moving on to the weekly. Let's go ahead and identify this here as well. Again, I've got just to clarify, the 20, 50, 100, and the 200-day SMA on here right now. It might look a little convoluted, of course, but generally speaking, you can see that we're up over the 50 correction, this is the 200 down here, but we're below the 50 and the 20 and trending above the 100. So ultimately, that doesn't really matter too much to me personally. I don't really care too much about those moving averages on the weekly. I think the daily is probably more an effective time frame to look at that. But we are, and the truth be told here, I mean, we've been like this for a while, ever since, what is it? It was right in, November. Late November when we kind of had the price shift to the downside. We've been under 50 on the RSI for some time, okay? Now, what's crazy about that is we barely came under 50 on the RSI previously last summer when it came down hard. Basically just means we didn't have enough time to average the price out and that we didn't spend enough time above that price point. And with this transitioning down, it kind of does shift the momentum and let us know that, hey, we might have a potential resistance if the price were to come back up a little bit higher, which is probably pretty close to reflecting about 46,000, which is essentially one of those resistance walls where the moving averages are accumulating. Okay, so again, that's just kind of what that looks like there on the weekly. Again, not dire straits, but kind of, I would just say fair to middling, in my personal opinion, kind of like just a middle ground, so to speak, where we don't have any definitive good or bad. Right? That's kind of how the charts have been looking. Again, takeaway here, in my opinion, I think this is more relevant. Higher highs and higher lows on the weekly and the monthly. That's important. I think that's a key thing there. So if we do lose our, say we make a lower low, for example, then at that point we might want to consider a potential push to the downside or a bearish type of divergence, at least a long-term divergence. But between now and then, we're still probably in pretty good shape here. Let me go ahead and take a look here. Let's clean this up first of all, and just kind of go ahead and work with the standard stuff. We're underneath both moving averages, the 50 and the 200. So that is, not great, but it's par for the course considering how much sell-off pressure we had yesterday. Now, are we going to accumulate at the current price point or go lower? That's the question. I mean, truth be told, 37,000 is the next key level support based on Fibonacci retracement and previous support levels. So heaven forbid we do lose 39 as approximate, then we could in fact see the price come down to about 37 as the next potential support. All right. Now, truth be told here as well, we are under 50 on the RSI. I don't love this. It's unfortunate that we did have that happen, but good news is, we got this nice little type of increase, this support, so to speak, which is synonymous in a lot of ways with this as well. So, I mean, we've got some nice trend lines that are very positive in the sense that we shouldn't expect the price to come. Well, I wouldn't say don't expect it because based on yesterday's events, we got to expect the unexpected, and we had some extreme market exhaustion yesterday and just kept on going. So the truth be told, we never truly know, and these trend lines are just trend lines. But in my experience in the history that I've been trading, I would feel that trend lines have a pretty significant impact on continuation patterns. And if we look at this, of course, just kind of draw perspective, we can see that we came down as low as 35. The next low is 37. Okay, so that's our new support. 37,000 is our next key level support. This next the next low rather, even though we're not making higher highs, the next low has to be somewhere in the range of where the price is at now. If it goes any lower than 37, then we're going to have a lower low printed on the 1 day, and that's not good. Okay, so I'm not going to be completely bearish on Bitcoin until we lose 37. Obviously, we need to reanalyze and kind of look at some things because that could just be a candle wick down. It may not hold, but for lack of better terms, that's kind of what we're looking at here. And you got to keep in mind too, we had a couple of extreme days here. We had this guy here and this guy as well, where it felt like the sky was falling. Everyone's freaking out, and it's kind of par for the course. But at the end of the day, in that 24-hour period, it still continues upwards in this trend. Again, making higher lows. We're not making higher highs, which you could argue that that's not good, which is true. There's no doubt that not making a higher high isn't great. But oftentimes, these breakout patterns break to the upside more often than not for a reason, because of the fact that they become exhausted. In other words, the sellers can only sell so much at these price points. And if you continue to try to sell at this price point over and over and over again, the buyers are going to push through eventually. Okay. So we're more likely to see a break to the upside in that sense past this resistance level here at about 44,500 than we would to see a break to the downside. Again, until we break this trend line, right? Again, this trend line to me is pretty important in a lot of ways, and it's synonymous with, once again, the RSI as well. We can see a trend essentially here where the price is coming down and that's going up, right? That's typically not a great sign, but I do love the fact that we have this here. All right, so again, big picture, not in terrible shape, but we do have a MACD divergence forming right now. So there's potential for the price to push down further. Once again, just bear in mind, if we break this trend line, then at that point, I think we should, expect for the price to continue to go down. Between now and then, I think we got to try to kind of be patient and hope for the, I wouldn't say hope for the best because hope doesn't really get you anywhere. But realistically, I think that this is probably a pretty safe little place here. And I do feel like based on the volume profile, we shouldn't see the price go tremendously lower than here. If it does break, again, 37,000, then we're gonna have a different conversation. And that's just the way it goes. But until then, the sky is not falling. Try not to think we're in dire straits. Yes, it's unfortunate. We had a 9.5% red day yesterday. But you gotta remember, we had a, what was that, 17%? From bottom to top, almost 18% on Monday, okay? So this is just a big game for the whales. They threw in their money and they sold when they took the profits, and all the rest of us are kind of left with a price point in the 42 to 44,000 range. That's pretty normal, pretty standard. That's why we always want to recommend dollar cost averaging. So to me, is 39,200, 300 a good value? Yeah, I'd still think it's a good value. Because once again, you got to recognize that Bitcoin, based on its increase in price and how it's progressing, again, the likelihood of it being 6 figures is fairly high in the next couple of years. That's just my personal opinion. And then of course, you do that 10, 20 years out the road, is 7 figures a possibility. Also very much a realistic potential. Okay. So again, just some things to think about. We're going to look like legends when we're talking about investing at 40,000 when it's 400,000 someday, right? Again, there's no guarantees, but Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It's got a finite amount of coin. And I think that we should make sure that we consistently add to our position. Just a general rule of thumb, I think that's a good call. Obviously, different story if you're day trading and all that. But for your HODL bag, your long-term investment bag, please make sure you invest in that, or just consider adding to your position, of course. Anyways, enough about that. Let's go and work our way down and call it a day here. Onto the 4-hour chart. This is what we did lose yesterday, which was unfortunate, right? So here's where we were at, because we actually took a trade that I had to manually cancel because of the fact that we lost this moving average. So what I mean by that is you can see the simple moving averages as well as this tentative trend line here, where we had these 3 points. Usually your third point will bounce. We didn't get a bounce, we got a sell-off. So that to me tells me that the buyers are primed and ready to go. I think that we're going to see an increase over the next few days versus a decrease. However, that being said, we did lose the support level here, and the price continued lower, and in turn, basically cancel our trade before to minimize those losses. And the reason why, of course, you got to do that sometimes, you got to pull the plug, is because if you look at this, we should not have seen this much direction. I mean, look at this here. We got, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 4-hour candlesticks into overtime. Okay. So that's literally a full day and a half of red, which you should have seen a retracement or a correction since then. So again, this isn't 100%, but I looked back in the last 3 months. There's only been one occurrence where we hit a 9 and had an extra couple of days of momentum or push to the downside. Where this we actually had a full. It was just crazy to me to see that. Again, that's where cryptocurrency has a tendency of surprising you sometimes. So even though we're moving into this over-exhausted state, and we had this both moving averages basically creating a golden cross and a trend line hitting 3 points, that didn't even hold. Okay, so that just kind of goes to show you the selling pressure that was happening yesterday. No matter what, the bulls could not regain control, and that once again is a result of this here. 17 to 18% in one trading day will result in this craziness that you expect, where you have to expect the unexpected, I think it is. And I'm sorry, speaking isn't my strong suit here today, I apologize, but I'm just getting the point across here that the 4-hour, it doesn't look great, but here's the cool thing, and keep this in mind too. If we look at the RSI, it's bouncing off of 30. That's great. 30 held as a support level, which is synonymous with 39,000 as a very close approximate. We also have a MACD potential convergence here as well. Now, granted, this is a weekend. We're not going to see a tremendous amount of volume, but once this comes into fruition here, we should expect to see the price bounce back. Okay, so that's a positive thing. That's a tool that I use frequently, and I think that's kind of telling us that we're in pretty good shape there. What we also want to look at is the cloud here, and I'm sure we're going to be well below the cloud. Yeah, it's going to be some time before we're back up above. but you can see this lagging span is coming into soon to intersect with the price action. That tells me there's a shift in momentum turning, or happening, so to speak. And we can see right here, of course, we got this nice little push up currently. Again, not a lot of selling pressure based on how much selling happened during the weekdays. I think we're going to see a greenish weekend, and this is probably the start of a potential increase to at least 40 to 41.5. But we just got to understand too, though, now that 41,500 potential previous support level. I use bunny ears because it wasn't much of a support. It only held for about 12 hours. We could expect that to be a new resistance. Okay, so 41.5 is a new resistance, 37,000 is a new support, and we're just going to probably do some channel trading between now and then, and we'll see, of course, what happens next. But to me, the sky is not falling. Bitcoin's in good shape. This is a natural correction based on how high the price came up in the first place, and at this point in time, I think we just got to, look at the facts. We're making higher highs and higher lows on the 1 day. We're making higher highs and higher lows on the weekly and the monthly. Those are more positive to me than some simple moving averages that may or may not work as support levels. Okay. Again, moving averages are great to give you perspective on what the average price should be based on that time frame and that period. Okay. But it isn't a definitive line in the sand, where I do think that these kind of trend lines are a little bit more impactful, as well as volume, which is why we look at the volume profile to ensure that we are on the right track. And truth be told, if you look at the most recent time frame here, we've got a lot of volume just below the current price point, and even if we zoom out too, same scenario as well. Obviously, we've got a tremendous amount of volume down at 10,000. That shouldn't matter. But if we look at the most recent time frame here, just say this is approximately 1 year. If we look at the last 1 year of trading, you can see the amount of volume below the current price point is very high. And that to me is a positive. We got a strong foundation there. So I do personally feel that 30,000 would be our bottom if we were to come back and test again. But once again, that would put us at a lower high. Sorry, no, it would be a lower low. We'd be making lower lows at that point, and that would be disadvantageous, of course. So until we get there, we don't need to worry about it. We got to wait for some candlesticks to close, but I think we have more positive than negative here at this point, and I don't think that we should kind of overreact per se, but also be prepared for the fact that we could see a sell-off and your altcoins could be damaged. So in that sense, I think dollar cost averaging is probably the best recommendation. I don't recommend necessarily selling everything and just kind of hoping that the price continues to go down so you can get a better value. That's always nice. But we should also consider, adding to our position now, because if the price comes up and doesn't come back down again, we're going to be frustrated. We never invested at 40,000. All right. Or 39.5, whatever the case. Anyways, I hope you found benefit here. I hope that this was not a circular conversation and you were able to extract some positive here. Because again, I don't think it's dire straits by any means. This is pretty standard stuff. It was kind of odd for the price to come down that much in one trading day, but it makes sense considering how high we went up in one trading day. Okay. All right. So hopefully you found benefit. Thanks again for joining me here. Not currently a community member. We talk about all this stuff in our roundtable discussions weekly. That is Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, of course, I have a signal group where I share signals for every trade that I take. And we're probably looking at a trade to the upside here. I feel like we're going to see at least 40 to 41.5. I think it's a pretty strong likelihood here. We'll go from there. But I thank you again for joining me here. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one.